slow. Just 1 minute, okay? My computer is taking so much of time to open. I don't know. Okay, so today we'll start with okay. So today we'll start with some mechanisms. Okay, how? Hello, is my voice audible? Okay, so we'll start with the secretions. Okay, secretion. In short, we have discussed about the different parts of the digestive system, and from the secretory part. Okay, we will start with the secretory part, the main activity of the digestion. So, what are the general mechanisms of secretion? Okay, say secretion of like secretion from the mouth, secretion from the stomach, secretion from the intestinal walls, then other organs like pancreas, secretion of the liver. Okay, all their secretions will be poured into the digestive system and they are going to play their roles. So what is the general mechanism behind their secretion? Okay, what is the mechanism in general? First of all, there has to be diffusion of the nutrient material from the capillary into the base of the glandular cell. Just see in this figure. Just imagine that this is one secretory cell. Okay, it can be any cell in the digestive tract, any part, maybe a part in the salivary gland, maybe a part in the stomach, maybe a part of the pancreatic cell, okay, or maybe a part of the liver cells. Okay, any kind of the cell which will be able to secrete. So what is the general mechanism followed? Okay, so in that, the secretory cell will be all surrounded by the blood vessels. Okay, the secretory cell will be having two ends, the basilar end and the apical end. The apical end means it here, this towards this side the secretion has to come, and this is the hollow opening of the digestive tract. Okay, while it is at the base, at the wall of the digestive tract. This cell is facing towards the wall of the digestive tract. Just you imagine like this. So each cell is surrounded by the blood vessels. They are supplied by the nerve terminus. So first of all, this secretory cell has to get the nutrients for secretion. So those nutrients will come from the blood vessels. The surrounding blood vessels here is the capillary. So the nutrients which are required for using the secretions by this secretory cell will come from the blood vessel. They will enter to the secretory cell first of all. Okay. So there will be diffusion of nutrient material from the capillary into the base of the glandular cell. Glandular cell, why we say glandular cell? Because this cell is going to act as a gland. It is going to secrete certain secretions. Okay. Then that nutrient, okay, that nutrient will be used up. Okay, that nutrient will be utilized by different organelles in the secretory cell, and they will build up, they will make certain other products. Say mitochondria will use the oxidative energy to synthesize ATP, and that ATP which is synthesized in the mitochondria will, okay, in addition to that ATP, other appropriate substances, okay, other required substances, whether it is the salivary gland, or whether it is the pancreatic gland, or it is the liver, or it is the stomach. Okay, so depending on the type of the cell, depending on the type of the gland, the appropriate substances will be incorporated along with the ATP. The substrates are used for synthesis of other organic secretory substances in the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi complex. Okay, then in the ribosomes, the proteins will be synthesized. Okay, these synthesized secretory materials will again be transported to the Golgi, and in the Golgi complex, so you know the functions of each of the cell organelles. Okay, so simply what I am telling is that there is diffusion of the nutrients, and the organelles, they perform their activities. So in the Golgi complex, those materials will be modified. Okay, then during this modification process, certain other chemical substances will also be added, and they will become concentrated. Okay, and these secretions, they will be released from the Golgi complex. They will be discharged into the cytoplasm in the form of secretory vesicles, and then those secretory vesicles, they will be initially storing towards the site of their secretion, but slowly and slowly they will move towards the apical end. Okay, that means what you mean to say is that this is the secretory cell, and those secretions, okay, they are modified in the Golgi apparatus. After modifications, they are released in the form of the secretory vesicles. So these vesicles will remain here and there, and slowly they get, okay, as slowly and slowly they will migrate towards the apical end of the secretory cell. So at this apical end, all the secretory vesicles will be located. Okay, as and when this secretory cell gets the signal for secretion, for release of their secretions, okay, the secretory cells will further migrate towards the end. It will merge the secretory vesicles, the membrane surrounding the secretory vesicles will get merged. Okay, they will get attached with the apical end membrane, cell membrane, and they will get ruptured, and they will be released from these secretory cells. Okay, so this release will depend on the stimulus, that the secretory cell will be getting the signal that yes, this substance is required, so it will lead to the secretion. Say for example, for secretion of the salivary gland, when the food substance is present in the mouth, okay, when the food substance is present in the mouth, this is going to give a signal, this is going to give us irritation on the buccal mucosa, and that will, the buccal mucosa are having the sensors, and that will give a signal to the brain, and that from the brain the signal will come for the secretion of the the saliva. So now when the saliva is secreted, the saliva will be present now in it will be carried through the salivary ducts. So this is one component of the salivary gland, one secretory cell of the salivary gland. This will now be poured into its lumen. Okay, so I will show you how a salivary gland looks like. Okay, sorry. So one unit for salivary secretions, one functional unit of the salivary secretion is called a salivon. You must be knowing about the nephron. One functional unit of the kidney is nephron. Just like that, one functional unit of the salivary gland, okay, for salivary secretion, one functional salivary unit is called a salivon. So each of this salivon consists of numerous acini. So who are these acini? Don't have any figure. So acini, one figure is misplaced. Okay, just 1 minute. I will show you one acini. How does an acini looks like? Just 1 minute. Okay, can you see this figure? Okay, so if we enlarge this figure, this will be something like this. So this is called one acinus. Okay, so this is one acinus, and this another acinus. Okay, so many acini will be present in the salivary unit. Okay, in one salivon. Okay, that means numerous acini will be present. Again, each of these acini are lined by epithelial cell. So this is one epithelial. So this is one epithelial cell. This is another. This is another. This is another. This is another. Or this is another. Okay, so these acini, each of these acini are lined by the epithelial cells, and each of these epithelial cells are going to act like a gland. That means each of these epithelial cells will have their secretions. Is it okay up to this? Is it okay? You could get, okay. So what I was telling is that one salivon, that is one functional salivary unit, it consists of numerous acini. That means I'm just showing one such branch, but there are numerous numbers of acini, okay? And they are all connected by ducts, okay? And that those ducts, that is numerous acini connected by intercalated ducts, okay? So the structure I am not able to show here. I'll show you later on, okay? So one salivon consists of numerous acini, one intercalated duct, and convoluted granular tubule and intralobular duct. Okay, intralobular duct. That means many such intercalated ducts will connect the numerous acini, and it will form a lobule, and that lobule will be connected by a duct. That is called the intralobular duct. Okay, so one lobule will have one lobular duct, another lobule will have another lobular duct. Okay, so that salivon consists of numerous acini, intercalated duct, convoluted granular tubule, and intralobular duct. Okay, so these are the components of a salivon. Okay, so here what you have to understand is that this acini is having a lumen here. Lumen means small opening over here. The secretions will come out from this epithelial cell, and they will be poured over here in this lumen. Then it will be carried to the duct. Okay, the secretions from here will be poured over here, and this is called the lumen, and this will be carried by the duct. Okay, so the salivary glands, they are mainly of three types, that is parotid gland, mandibular, and sublingual, while in case of dog, another additional salivary gland called zygomatic gland is also present. Okay, just 1 minute, okay? Okay, and then in addition to this, many other small salivary glands are present in the wall of the oral cavity. Okay, up to this, is it okay? About the salivary gland, what is salivon? What you have to understand here is what is salivon, what is acini, what is acinus, who are the acini, how they are connected. They are connected by intercalated duct. Then these ducts will merge together, okay, and will form a convoluted granular tubule. Okay, and then many such convoluted granular tubule will join to a intralobular duct. Okay, so that much is required. Okay, so these salivary gland, their secretions are again different. So this figure is showing that this acinus is a serous serous saliva secretory gland, and this is showing a mucus secreting acinus. So the acinus, they may be serous type and they may be mucus type, depending on their secretions. Okay, so saliva from different glands differ in their nature. So parotid gland produces a serous secretion which contains an amylase or ptyalin enzyme secretion. Ruminant and a carnivore saliva has no amylase. Okay, so this I told you already, the ruminant saliva and the carnivorous saliva, they don't have amylase in the salivary amylase in the saliva, while the other animals, simple stomach herbivores and the omnivores, okay, all the omnivores and the simple stomach herbivores, they have salivary amylase in their saliva, okay, and mainly the parotid gland produce a serous type of secretion, okay, and mandibular and the sublingual glands secrete a mixture of serous and mucous saliva containing mucin. Okay, then the smaller glands in the oral cavity secrete a viscous mucus-rich saliva. The purpose of the mucus is that it will give a coat onto the food substances, and that coat will protect from the injury which can be caused by the rough surfaces of the food substances, and also it will help in the easy swallowing. Okay, is it okay? So parotid gland, it secretes serous type of the saliva. Hello, is there loss of connection? Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Was there any loss of connection?
No.
Oh, okay. So, okay, then the mandibular and the sublingual gland, they secrete a mixture of the serous and the mucous saliva containing mucin, and the other smaller glands in the oral cavity, they secrete viscous mucus-rich saliva. Okay, and if we see into the composition of saliva, saliva consists of more than 98% water. Okay, and remainder composed of ions and organic compounds. Okay, and who are the main components? One is mucin. What is mucin? It is a glycoprotein. That means it is having glucose as a carbohydrate as well as protein component. Okay, and when mucin is mixed with water, it becomes mucus. So somewhere you may find MuCOUS. It's the same. Okay, so mucin, when it is mixed with water, it becomes mucus, and mucus facilitates chewing and swallowing. Means it gives a coat on the food substances, and then it will help in easy chewing as well as easy swallowing. Okay, then next component is amylase. It is an enzyme. It helps in breakdown of starch in omnivores, simple stomach herbivores, and certain other avian species. Yes, the birds also have saliva which contains salivary amylase. Okay, this point should come here. Among the domestic animals, pig produces the highest concentration, and amylase remains active even after the food has appeared in the stomach. So what do you understand by here, by this last point? Amylase remains active even after the food has appeared in the stomach. What did I say about the pH of the saliva? Did I mention you about the pH of the saliva? Yes?
7.8.
Okay, in this species, is there any difference between the ruminant saliva and this saliva? Non-ruminant saliva? Any difference in the pH? Oh, maybe in the latter part. Okay, I'll come to that part later on, okay? Yeah, so no, there is difference, okay? So there is difference in the pH, okay? So, okay, let me come to that part. So pH of the ruminant saliva is 8.2, while the non-ruminant saliva is neutral. That means near around 7. Okay, there may be slight, say 7.2 like that. So it remains almost neutral in the non-ruminant saliva. But in case of the ruminant saliva, pH is alkaline. Okay, that means if that salivary amylase in the non-ruminant saliva, it is active in the neutral. Okay, neutral pH, say around 7. But their function, okay, their function, it remains active even after the food has appeared in the stomach. In the stomach, the pH is going to be very acidic, okay, very strongly acidic. So even after they reach there, then also some activity still remains. The meaning is that, okay. So in case of the omnivores, where in case of the non-ruminant animals, where the pH of the saliva is around 7, the salivary amylase is active in that pH. But once it reaches the stomach is going to have a highly acidic environment. Even in that also, the activity still remains to some extent. Okay, the meaning of this last line is that, okay, you understand the point, okay? Then saliva also contains other salts in the form of the bicarbonate, okay? The purpose of the salivary bicarbonate is that the acids, usually what happens, the mouth cavity always is loaded with the number of microbes, number of bacteria, okay? Those bacteria, they produce acid continuously, but the saliva is having certain amount of bicarbonate, and that bicarbonate neutralizes the acids produced by the bacteria invading the oral cavity, okay? Then in addition, there is presence of phosphate. The saliva of ruminants contains a high concentration of phosphate ions and are required also for microbial growth, okay? So this point we will discuss again in detail, but first of all, you just think that there is great difference between the saliva of ruminant animals and the non-ruminant animals. The ruminant animals, they have very large content of bicarbonates and phosphates. So who are these? These are all the bicarbonates. These are the bases, okay? So these are the products of the bases. So because of the presence of them, okay, the pH of the ruminant saliva is much higher, okay? So it is above 8, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4 like that, okay? So it is on an average 8.3. So in case of the ruminant saliva, these phosphate content is very, very high, and this phosphate is going to be utilized by the microbes. The numbers of microbes, the bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa, which are present in the rumen. Okay, for their growth, they are going to utilize these nutrient as a nutrients, the phosphates. Okay. Then in addition, there are also presence of lysozyme and antibodies. The enzyme, lysozyme and the antibodies in the saliva reduce the number of bacteria in oral cavity. Okay, in the oral cavity, there is continuous ingestion of numbers of the microbes. With what, with the food we are consuming, the bacteria, there are numbers of bacteria. They are never sterile, they are never free of microbes. But the environment in the oral mucosa, the environment in the mouth cavity, they are having certain functions. Say the lysozymes present in the saliva, they will kill those bacteria. Okay. Then in addition, there is also presence of tannin binder proteins. Okay, so these are certain types of the proteins which can bind with tannin. Okay, so tannin is a component in the food. Okay, so later on when you discuss, when you study in nutrition, you will read about these tannins. What are these tannins and all? Okay, so these tannins, these are actually they will disturb in the digestion of the proteins. Okay, so these that in detail you will study later on. So saliva is helping in removing the tannin, okay, from the food. Okay, so they will also bind with tannin. They all have tannin binder proteins. Then saliva is having high content of urea, particularly in case of the ruminants. Okay, so urea, where from the urea will come, urea diffuses from blood into the saliva, and when the protein content of the diet is low, the salivary urea is important as source of nitrogen for protein synthesis by microorganisms in the reticulum. So this is particularly true, these lines. Okay, so these lines are particularly true, and they play very important and a major role in protein synthesis in case of the ruminants. Okay, so in case of the ruminant saliva, the content of urea is high. Okay, then it is also transported directly from the blood to the reticuloruminal contents by diffusion across the epithelium. It's not only from the blood but also across the wall of the reticuloruminal, the wall of the reticulum and the wall of the rumen. Okay, so by passing from the blood to the reticulum wall, then it will reach to the reticulum, inside of the reticulum, or by passing from the blood to the ruminal wall also it can reach. Okay, so not only through the saliva. Okay, yeah, here there is drastic differences in the content of the ruminant saliva and non-ruminant saliva. So ruminant saliva do not have salivary amylase, while the non-ruminant saliva, okay, the non-ruminant saliva excluding, okay, the non-ruminant saliva, they have salivary amylase except the carnivores. Okay, except carnivores. Okay, they have salivary amylase, and the pH in the ruminant saliva is high. Okay, say 8.2, and it is around neutral in case of the non-ruminant saliva. And concentration of bicarbonate ions, they are very, very high in ruminant saliva, while it is much lower in case of the non-ruminant saliva. Phosphate concentration, same like bicarbonate, they are very high and they are low in ruminants, non-ruminant saliva. Okay, and at all the flow rates, means at all levels of the, whether the food is present in the mouth or not present in the mouth, at all the flow rates, the osmolarity of the cell ruminant saliva is isotonic. That means it is at the similar osmolarity to the blood. Okay, while in case of the non-ruminant saliva, it is hypotonic at vessel levels. Okay. And then volume, you see, volume in cattle 60 to 160 liters. So you can imagine that at least minimum of 100 liters per day will be secreted. Okay, just imagine 100 liters of saliva. Why? You know, the ruminant animals, they spend lots of time in rumination. So while doing rumination, there will be continuous chewing and there will be continuous secretion of saliva. Okay, and in case of the sheep, it is around 6 to 16 liters per day. But you see the size of a sheep and the size of cattle, but still the volume of saliva is very, very high. Do you want to ask anything up to this? So what we have discussed today is basic mechanism of saliva secretion, basic mechanism of secretion, and then about the salivary gland, what is salivon, what are the components of saliva, and what are the differences in ruminant saliva and non-ruminant saliva. Do you want to ask anything? Is it okay up to this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then next comes the regulation. Okay, who is going to regulate the secretion of saliva? Say how the secretion is regulated. So salivary secretion is entirely under neural control. Okay, that means this whole of the process of the salivary secretion is under the nervous control, under the neural control, except for the ruminant parotid gland that is not under neural control. So you remember this, that the parotid gland in the ruminant animals is, their secretion is not under neural control. Okay. So increased parasympathetic activity will result in increase in volume. So you think this, say if we talk of the parasympathetic nervous system, you have to think that it is going to help in digestion. You think like this, okay? And if we talk of the sympathetic nervous system, you think that sympathetic nervous system is, if activated, it is going to inhibit the digestion. Okay, so any activity related to digestion will be enhanced when there is parasympathetic nervous system activation. Okay, any activity in the digestion will be suppressed when the sympathetic nervous system is stimulated. Think like this, okay? That's why, you know, the parasympathetic nervous system is considered like some term has been given that the purpose of the parasympathetic nervous system is rest and digest. Okay, so whenever there is stimulation of the parasympathetic nervous activity, there will be increase in the volume. So when the volume is increased, the consistency will be less. So it will be watery in consistency. While when there is sympathetic activation, it will increase the production of amylase and other proteins, and due to the presence of the proteins, and also what the volume will be less.
बता बता। पता नहीं। बहुत पढ़ा लिया, इतना ही ठीक था। गूगल भी समझ गया। यतुल, ओ यतुल, ये चकीम।
अटेंडेंस लगाया फिर तुम।
क्या क्या?
Okay. Okay, so there is internet connection is disturbed. Only few points are left. Okay, just to complete this part. One point what I was telling was that increased sympathetic activity. Okay, so increased sympathetic activity is going to reduce the volume of secretion, while the parasympathetic nervous system stimulation is going to increase the volume. Okay, so and one more point is that during all the meals, so when you are eating, okay, when the animal is eating, when you are eating, then the parasympathetic nervous system will be dominant over the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so due to that, there will be continuous more and more secretion of saliva. Okay, so the rate of the secretion, these are the secretion of the saliva is controlled through certain reflexes, and those reflexes are inborn reflexes and also by the conditioned reflexes. So I told you about the conditioned reflex before, conditioning reflex 1 and conditioning reflex 2. Do you remember that the the dogs start salivating when the bell is rung? That activity I explained you, I suppose, before when I explaining about the behavior in the nervous system. Yes. Yes or no? Do you remember or not? Okay, so that means the salivary secretion, it works through reflexes one through the congenital. Congenital means inborn. Okay, it comes with the when someone is born. Okay, it comes by the virtue of birth. Okay, so it comes itself. But another is through the conditioning reflex. That conditioning reflex means, say, some smells with which you are familiar. Okay, so when you have that smell, some food items for which you are familiar, you are fond of eating that food substance. So when you get that smell, you start salivating. Okay, so that is through the conditioning reflex. Okay, so the salivary secretion regulation is entirely by the nervous system. Stimulation of the parasympathetic nervous system will increase the volume, while the sympathetic nervous system will decrease the volume. And during the meals, the parasympathetic nervous system is dominant over the sympathetic nervous system. So there will be continuous secretion of saliva during the meals. Okay, and salivary secretion, it works through reflexes, mainly through two reflexes. One is congenital reflex, another is the conditioned reflex. Okay, so up to this for today. If you want to ask anything, you can ask. You know, when you are afraid, when you are very scared of something, your mouth, there used to be dryness in your mouth. Why? You know, at that moment, the sympathetic nervous system is dominant over the parasympathetic nervous system. So due to that, the saliva secretion is minimized. Due to that, the saliva is less. Due to that, there is dryness of mouth. Okay. You correlate like that. Okay. Okay, anything you want to ask on this today?
No, ma'am.
Okay then, let's end the class. There is no internet connection. I cannot share the slides. You can leave.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.